It's after hours at that glamorous night spot, and you're taking it easy, swapping personal experiences. Let's listen in America today.
Hey, I'm Milo. I'm the former chief of staff at Yeezy. I used to run the company. I've never seen anything like the miasma that surrounds Ye, of, you know, from petty con artists to elaborate schemes to defraud to like diabolical dentists, you know, trying to like drug and murder megastars. Problems. I fired 130 people in January with no observable effect on business operations.
Months we saw the items got stolen. From your perspective, in that morning, everything got stolen. What's going on?
Well, we obviously weren't aware of the thefts happening when they happened. We became aware of them later.
Same day?
No, because the storage unit that we trusted was in on this stuff, so we were not notified of the losses, right? Demonstrates our frustration with the storage unit that it was in the business of keeping people's possessions safe, yet took a remarkably and disturbingly blasé attitude to where our possessions were. I kind of intuited there was something up with this guy, with the storage guy. So I suggested that we move everything back to our own storage facility, so we could perform an audit, check what we have, and you know, check that Ye's cars are good, that the safe is intact, blah blah blah. And we found out the safe had been cracked at this facility.
Really? It was on a pop-up. They had $8,000 worth of merch and Yeezy clothing. The Yeezy team, who's over here product, showed up to this and called the police.
This has been stolen! The team that went to shut it down actually sent them and said there is a sale of stolen Yeezy Gap from Ye, formerly known as Kanye West.
Yeezy Gap clothing is $20, so it was gonna be a movie. I was gonna cash out heavy, but then LAPD showed up and they closed down the
road. They had a truckload of stuff over there that they were about to sell for $20 a pop.
There are still people waiting since February for orders, back on Yeezy Supply, and now you can't make any orders over on Yeezy Supply, so they have shut the website down for now. But in the meantime, there was this new
website came out of nowhere claiming to be selling unreleased Gap products. It's called Los Angeles Archive, and at first people were ordering and receiving products that they had no issues with.
On what grounds? On what grounds? This was stolen. Ongoing investigations.
This particular storage unit had a wide variety of things, including some of Ye's automobiles and his private safe. And his private safe was cracked when it was at this 1981 facility in Orange County. And so when we retrieved it, we obviously immediately got the contents out to safekeeping. And we discovered when the Yeezy Gap merchandise was returned, we discovered that we were short by a lot, by lots of boxes, and began to wonder what had happened. And so we asked 1981 for an accounting of where stuff was, and we were told, oh, there might be some pallets still in the rafters, which made us really a little bit worried. And then one morning, Charney notices a sale of Yeezy Gap happening across town in LA. Some promotional posts on Instagram from Urban Necessities. On Friday, March 15th, Yeezy executives became aware of the sale of stolen Yeezy Gap merchandise by Urban Necessities in downtown Los Angeles. The merchandise was unmistakably ours because boxes visible in promotional social media postings bore labels from both our manufacturing partner, Los Angeles Apparel, and our storage facility, 1981 Distribution. There was and is no doubt that the product belonged and still belongs to Yeezy, and no doubt that it was removed from Yeezy's storage facility without permission. With the assistance of the LAPD, we stopped the sale and issued Urban Necessities with a cease and desist order, a copy of which I enclosed in a letter to them on March 22nd, 2024. We asked the police to impound our merchandise to prevent further losses, and we supplied the attending officers with a telephone number of owner of our 1981 storage facility in the expectation that he would confirm the goods belonged to us. Well, we were stunned to hear him assure the LAPD that our merchandise had been sold lawfully and that our concerns were unwarranted. It turned out that's because he was in on it. So the police declined to impound it, and Urban Necessities refused to return our stock. We couldn't fathom why at the time take this extraordinary risk of lying to the police without seeing or even asking to see any evidence. And only later did we become aware that he and Urban Necessities had supplied the LAPD with forged paperwork in an attempt to prove that they acquired Yeezy product via legitimate channels. So I enclosed an example forgery alongside the original. It showed the changes made to our wording. And we didn't know about the existence of these forgeries when we spoke to the officers on the scene. If we had, the outcome would obviously have been very different.
You know, this is a year after, I guess this product was sold, but, you say you talked to all parties, so I'm just even curious what that means. Yeah, I mean, we're just a buyer of product. Like, we bought product that was sold to us. And so, again, I don't know what else you gathered, but it doesn't sound like you've really gathered all the information on what actually happened here. So that's where, I guess that's where I just want us you to be cautious on anything that you're printing about Urban Necessities in any way, because everything that happened after that moment, when all that stuff arose, was from false allegations by Kanye and his team. And it led to defamation of the business. And the cops, Port Authority, and every registered agency came out on site that day, and they all walked away because they saw that it was a false allegation. So that's where I don't want the name in Urban Necessities to be printed in any of this, because all it has done is hurt the business. And we bought everything properly, and we bought a small subset of the overall amount of product that Kanye did with Gap. So that's where I don't even know why this is even a story. We bought it from a seller. We're in the resale business. We bought it from somebody selling the product that had all the authorization and paperwork, which was shown to every agency along the way, and that's why all those people left. But I know that it went through. Corey sounds like as familiar as a name, but I can't remember what I can't remember what the company was that he had. But
this is just a basic contract that we acquired from our lawyers. And up here, you're going to see a DocuSign envelope ID. Now, the envelope ID is like it's like an individual wet signature. It's impossible for two different signed documents to have the same DocuSign envelope ID. So you're only going to see that on one document with one set of wording. It's going to be identical, right? You'll never see two different signed contracts with the same envelope ID. So this is a document that was handed to the LAPD by Urban Necessities. And this document shows that they supposedly had permission to sell Yeezy Gap merchandise, and that it doesn't appear to preclude the sale in the United States, Canada, or Mexico. That wording doesn't appear here. And it looks to be signed by Bianca and to be from Yeezy, okay? There's just one problem. This is not the original document. This is. And you're going to see some differences. The envelope ID is the same there, you see. This wording does not appear in the forged version that Urban Necessities gave to the LAPD. And that's because this wording makes it clear that the sale of Yeezy Gap merchandise is forbidden in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It's unlawful. So you're going to see on the version that was handed to the police a slightly different gap between these two paragraphs, almost as though something has been removed. And of course, it has. It's that wording right there. And so this is the original document. This is the forgery. And you'll see an unequal spacing between the paragraphs here and even spacing here. And there are other problems with it too. For instance, I think what happened here is they typed the whole thing out and then made changes, because this font is not actually the same. And in addition, there's things like straight quotes and curly quotes here. It's quite a remarkably bad forgery. Now, this document, this forgery requires, it achieves two things. It enables them to steal the merchandise from our storage facility, because it apparently gives the storage facility the ability to sell the document. To sell the goods. And it enables the sale of those goods in the countries that, in fact, it's unlawful to do so. Discovering this forgery achieves a few things too. First of all, it exonerates Ye's wife because her original signature is only valid on the document that is real and not, which is this one, and not on the forgery. And it also establishes who's involved by showing the name of the company that unlawfully removed this from our warehouse, because they did have a license from us to sell Yeezy Gap. They just never did sell any. They stole it instead. And then they doctored contracts from Yeezy to make it look like they were allowed to sell the merchandise in the United States. Bianca signs everything for Ye, which I think everybody knows, but I know what she signed and what she didn't, and what are forgeries and what are not, from running the company, but also obviously having access to the lawyers who can confirm this. So having her signature on a document does not incriminate her in any way. She signed everything. What it does is help us find the original. So let me show. Oh, this is what I was doing wrong. Okay. It was me. I was a retard. In any case, Urban Necessities' claim on Instagram to have been exonerated by the LAPD is idiotic. The police have no power to clear anyone of wrongdoing. They don't decide if people are guilty or innocent. Police don't do that anywhere in the world. Their job is to arrest you and then hand you over to the criminal justice system that does that.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing is that's where, again, this is the argument that Dub tried to make, and so that's where, again, I'd say do your research, because what then the police commissioner told us, and I talked to him specifically, he said, hey, we did all our research, and we called the company, not the company that you guys put on, that you guys gave us an invoice for. We called the company that Jeff, the CFO of Kanye's team, gave them the information for. So it ended up being, and checking out, being all the same. And so it wasn't the, any of the information we provided. They, back channeled and did all of their research on that. And that's what I'm saying. You don't get every agency coming out there, not even seizing the product, unless there's 100% conclusive evidence that there's no issue there. Because if not, they'll seize it until they figure it out. You know what I mean? Yeah, but that's, again, when they don't even seize one item. They would seize an item, and there was plenty of items there to seize if they needed to have, if there was any investigation that was of serious cause. But that's where they didn't seize one item, because they did all of that. And so that's where, again, it sounds like, based on what you're already talking about, you're trying to paint a different picture. But that's where, again, the picture that was trying to be painted from, against Urban Necessities as us being the end seller was the wrong, I guess, aim to be pointing from the beginning, because we were not part of anything that was nefarious. And so that's where I can't speak to Dub or, any of the other people in the chain of custody. That's where it's like, I can only speak to us. And that's where, if you can show me one record that shows that, there was any wrongdoing by our part, please. But it's like, if not, you're now just, you're I think promoting, or you're thinking about publishing things that are not that at all. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. If they were even gonna hand that over, they would hand that over because there would be a case, and they would have seized products. They would have seized everything, and that's where, I mean, and trust me, that's where, when they first came in, they went through that process. And they said, this is all the things we're gonna have to do, and then they went through their investigation for a few hours after closing down the entire street. It looked like a crime street that 50 officers out there. And they took 0 items, and they didn't call our contacts. They called the contacts that the Kanye CFO provided. You understand by that? Like, that's where it's like, that was the evidence that gave it to them. That's what they said to us. They're like, yeah, we were able to prove that there's nothing wrong here, because we didn't call the numbers that you guys provided. We called the numbers they provided, and they said all of the invoice and everything check out. So that's where, again, I don't know when you're saying that things don't check out now. That's where I just want to be clear, like, the police did this already. You know what I mean?
The doctored Yeezy contracts that Urban Necessities handed the LAPD, contracts to which the signature of Ye's wife Bianca was shamefully and outrageously appended, look like they authorized the sale of Yeezy Gap stock direct to consumers in the United States. But this, as everybody knows, is forbidden. And even if it hadn't been a sale of stolen goods, this pop-up sale would have been unlawful for that reason. Because Urban Necessities was so blisteringly uncooperative in the weeks after that, we didn't initially have any idea whether they were uncooperative, complicit, unwitting victims. We had no idea. I have a bit of a clearer idea now. But I do know that Corey Shapiro, the so-called Canadian seller to whom Urban Necessities grudgingly introduced us, was a fucking liar.
What's up, man? Chilling. You?
Recording in progress.
Am I on mute? Yeah, so my name is Corey Shapiro. I am the founder, designer, and head purveyor at Vintage Frames Company. So we're the world's largest designer vintage archive with, in terms of eyewear and sunglasses, with anywhere between 1.7 and 1.8 million designer vintage frames in stock. Definitely was one of the pioneers in that industry from all facets. So I used to own a sneaker store, like before Flight Club and before all that type of shit. And I am very close, and we were, our businesses were intertwined with Jesse and Drew from F as in Frank, which obviously was, probably the pioneer on vintage streetwear type stuff and still is.
Everybody, we're here in the F as in Frank Vintage Warehouse. Today we're talking about the unreleased Yeezy Gap collection with my boy Caleb. He's modeling the hoodie.
Jace, or 2Js, is a old and long-time friend of mine. So he was brought into the mix. I guess Dallas came into the mix afterwards. I'm very close with Dom, Shoe Surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
And before Shoe Surgeon got purchased from, I guess, Dallas or whatever, that acquisition was.
No. He is, I don't know if I'm mentioning about JC, but he's got a significant other that's been battling stage 4 cancer for some time. So that's where he's been spending a lot of his time and energy and, on family. And so that's where, we came in to invest, and then, ended up purchasing the rest of the business so that he could just be free of focus.
That's where I met him, but I don't know him from any fashion or anything of the sort prior.
So with that connection with Urban Necessities, can you speak on last year around this time, how you were able to be the middleman for that sale of Urban Necessities, having the vintage and unreleased Yeezy Gap over in downtown Los Angeles?
Sure. How did you know about that? So I have a lot of other businesses. We were offered. We get offered a lot of those types of deals in general, whether it's that commodity or others. So we were presented the deal by actually through F as in Frank, and we financed the deal. The deal was purchased from a company called 1981 Distribution.
Mm-hmm.
And 1981 Distribution sold it to us fully legally, and then we sold it to Dallas and those guys.
Gotcha. And for the 1981 Distribution, can you speak on how you were able to get in connection with, and how that was how that acquisition kind of came about?
I didn't know him really at all, to be honest. We were introduced via F as in Frank, and it actually wasn't even my deal. I just financed the deal.
I see.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Are you familiar with a company called MioTex or gmBH?
Because asked to provide contact information for the person who sold him our property, he first said they were Italian, and then he changed his mind and said, no, they're German. They're definitely German. And when we asked for a telephone number for the seller, which was supposedly MioTex gmbH, he said he didn't have one, which we found ludicrous, given that he'd supposedly wired them hundreds of thousands of dollars. He sent somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars, but hadn't got a phone number or an email address for them. We didn't find that to be plausible. Eventually, he gave us an email address and a hastily forged invoice. but the mailing address on the invoice was fictitious. No business operates anywhere nearby that address. And the email address he gave us, we found that the domain had been registered just hours before the phone call, the very same day that we had been begging Urban Necessities to connect us with Shapiro. When I asked the supposed Canadian buyer, Mr. Shapiro, for the contact information for MioTex, and it's inconceivable that you wouldn't have the contact information for somebody you paid $500,000 to for merchandise. He gave me an email address connected to a domain that had been registered a couple of hours beforehand. Now, something didn't ring true to me about the email he gave me. It says billing at MioTex gmBH.com. GmbH is like a German version of LLC, but I've never seen a German company that doesn't have a .de, that has a .com instead. And a GmbH typically won't put that in the URL. Like you wouldn't put like yeezyllc.com as your domain. It would just be peculiar. And you especially wouldn't put yeezyllc.com as your domain if you were German. You'd be yeezy.de. So a couple of things didn't look right about this. I looked it up, and it turned out that it had been registered a couple of hours before our phone call. And this was enabled by Urban Necessities stalling and refusing to introduce us to their buyer, giving him time to kind of piece all this together.
Are you familiar with a company called MioTex gmbH, German company?
Familiar? No.
Gotcha. Have you ever heard of it or used like a German company?
I have heard of it, but I'm not familiar with it.
Gotcha. And how would you know about MioTex?
Through various people.
How so? Because from my point of view, I've been told that MioTex gmbH is a fake company.
So I think their name had appeared on an invoice that was being purchased through the 1981 guys.
Not today, thank you. Sorry, it's just a response. My ex-husband's long story. Okay, so all right, so you're going to see here the purchase order from Urban Necessities that claims that they purchased the Yeezy Gap stock, which we value at $1.2 million for $682,000. Now, after weeks of begging them to share with us where they got it from, they eventually gave us the name of somebody in Canada who turned out to just be a complete fantasist and liar, probably one of their guys. So he eventually provided us with this fictitious invoice, which appears to show that he in Canada supposedly purchased this stuff from a company in Germany called MioTex at Klarstraße Nummer 13 in Essen. It's just one problem: that company doesn't exist, and there are no commercial businesses operating at that address. I know because I sent somebody.
I have no idea. I lend out money to people, and that's pretty much as far as we go. F as in Frank had been purchasing these commodities for years.
Mm-hmm.
They had rented out some of my real estate to do pop-up shops in Montreal, and then I was asked to finance a deal. That was it.
So this whole thing is a forgery. And when I begged him for the contact information for the people that originally purchased the Yeezy Gap, which would have completed the circle and established beyond doubt who stole the stuff from our factory, between Urban Necessities being asked and eventually providing contact information for their seller, provided that fictitious seller with the time he needed to kind of stitch together this deception. So I told Dallas and Isaac and the guys at Urban Necessities all this stuff, and they promised me they would be enthusiastic partners in pursuing justice. Now, I even wondered at that time if Urban Necessities and Yeezy were both victims of the same crime, and I invited them to collaborate with us to bring the guilty to justice. Their response, rather than saying, thank you, we'd like to do that, their response was to lawyer up.
And so that's where, again, like I know from a high level that this ultimately, and that's where anything that you have from Kanye or Dove, I would love to see that, because again, they are facing, you know, us filing a defamation lawsuit against everything they did, because they had all these things that you're saying, you know, that you have record of. Again, every agency came out that day. Every agency took what they said at first, because it's Kanye, and so he was preaching from a very high megaphone, and had then the chief of police end up putting some time and energy into this. And after then a couple hours of them doing all their research, looking at all the paperwork, and calling everywhere to verify it, not numbers that we gave them, but numbers that Kanye's team gave them, they said, hey, you guys are good. You guys can keep selling. Now, we decided not to, out of good faith, to try to work with Kanye through any of the disagreements or arrangements that he didn't have clear on his side. But that's where everything that we did was by the book, and had all proper documentation and paperwork for. And so that's where I don't want any other energy to come towards you know, Urban Necessities, because ultimately it caused a lot of harm when, you know, you have Dove and, you know, Kanye's CFO out there saying things that aren't true, and then bringing an entire police force, and then the police force walking away. They said, you guys can go ahead and keep selling if you want. And they said, I suggest you guys have a conversation with Dove and their CFO, Jeff, and just try to you know, try to get them to be cool with things. And so that's where we said, hey guys, out of respect for Kanye and respect for everything, we're happy to give you guys a couple hours, and let's come back and figure something out on what we can do if you guys want this product back. But we've paid money for this, and so if you guys don't want it being sold, happy to figure some out. Now, in those 2 hours, they then went and put together a legal document that they said was a notice that we were selling false goods. Afterward, the police just came, and we said, hey guys, let's go back and sit in our office right now in the back and not be out here on the street. We don't want to be, we said we were going to work in good faith. You guys then went and sent a legal letter. And so that's not working in good faith. Let's figure out how to work some. Then we sat with them for a couple hours, and we said, hey guys, it got late into the night. We didn't want this product sitting out in South Central LA. And so ultimately they couldn't come to any terms with anything that made sense. And so we said, guys, we're not going to push this out in the market anymore right now. We'll, you know, let's figure out something, come back to us. They never came back to us. But that's where there was no thing that anybody had to stop selling or anything. We could sell it right then. But out of respect, we didn't, because it sounded like there was some disagreement with whatever they had going on their back end. But everything we did, we bought it all legally. And so we got into the crosshairs for no reason. And they hurt our business very bad by doing those things. And again, we worked in good faith to try to then resolve them, because we don't like bad business.
And to send us a response to our cease and desist that accused us of being in the wrong, which is obviously ludicrous. And if you don't mind me, you know, if you don't mind me saying, not stereotypically innocent behaviors, right? So through their lawyers, Urban Necessities informed us that they and their parent company, Surgeon Worldwide, respected the intellectual property rights of others and appreciated Ye for his artistic and business talents. They said they appreciated the concern that we had to control the sale of our brand through channels that don't align with the brand image, and so on and so forth. But is any of that really true? Well, consider their flea market fiasco of March 15th. Their staff were surrounded by counterfeit, maybe also stolen, Yeezy Gap paraphernalia, giant banners that had our logos and brands. None of this was ever permitted by us. We never gave permission for the use of these names and logos. Gap didn't, and Yeezy didn't. And if Urban Necessities hadn't been caught selling stolen products, maybe customers would have continued to believe that they were somehow endorsed by us when they were not. The respect and appreciation that Urban Necessities say they have for designers and brands is completely at odds with the reality, which is that they choose to masquerade as an authorized reseller, festooning their grimy and abortive swap meets at which they attempt to flog stolen property with logos and branding that they have neither the legal authorization nor the moral right to use. So let me just be unambiguously clear about this. Urban Necessities' behavior does not align with Yeezy's brand image or brand values, as I wrote to them at the time when I was chief of staff. They're not authorized to use any logo or brand. That is the case today, as it was then, or to sell any Yeezy product now or in the future. And Urban Necessities can no longer maintain the fiction that they are holding goods obtained via legitimate means. they are trading in stolen goods. It is unambiguously clear. What no one in my office could understand at the time is why Urban Necessities didn't act more swiftly to clear their own names in this matter, if indeed they were innocent. So I wrote to them on March 22nd, which is the letter I'm reading from now, with an offer to remedy the situation, and told them they would not be given another. On Monday morning, I told them the following Monday morning they were obliged to return the stolen merchandise in full. If they didn't, we would report the crime. They did not, and therefore we did report. We made a police report. So we told them that we would we valued the goods at 1.2 million and would press criminal charges against them. We told them that we would publicize this story, and they. So I have just been informed. Simply left Los Angeles and sold the stuff in Chicago and Vegas instead.
Okay, you guys, so it has been some time since I last spoke to you guys via the Yeezy documentary, because I shot this interview with Milo back in October of last year. It is now June. Because I originally went to speak to Milo about the stolen Yeezy Gap over in downtown Los Angeles, and so many more names and stories brought up, I couldn't just put his information out as truth. I had to ask more questions, and we had to get in our investigative journalism bag over in Crisis, which, as you guys know, it's not fucking normal. We just got fucking page numbers. This is not something we typically do, but with this video, I was able to ask the questions the correct way in this next video, and in part 3, we are going to be talking to the one person that we did not speak to in this video. We spoke to Milo, we spoke to Corey Shapiro, we spoke to Urban Necessities. Now we are going to be speaking to 1981 distribution. Out in part 3, you guys, we recorded some of the craziest shit. 1981 gave us all the proof and all the evidence here. We are going to be reporting something that you guys haven't seen on Reddit, you haven't seen on Discord, you guys haven't seen anywhere reported about Ye, Kanye West, and any of these archival items. I swear to God, you guys, part 3 is going to break the internet. I am so excited for you guys to see this shit. What we have reported, like I said, I have had this information and all of this evidence since October, and I released the dentist part because, man, it was public information. Urban Necessities, there's more stuff coming out on that literally as we speak. I'm going to be ending the video with some breaking news coming from JC Urban Necessities, who I was not able to speak to. You guys, I wish I couldn't end it like this, but y'all, part 3 is going to be retarded. I can't wait for y'all to see it. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hate to fucking announce it this way, but Crisis Magazine, it is out on Amazon right now. Like the fucking Amazon storefront. Go to Amazon. Crisis Magazine is right there. It is 252 pages of everything we've worked hard to do. I don't give a fuck if you subscribe. Just go to Amazon, pre-order Crisis Magazine. I'm gonna make a dedicated video actually announcing this shit. I wasn't planning on doing this, but the video's going out. You guys are fucking with it. If you want to support the channel, don't subscribe. Just grab a magazine. I really support it. Thank you guys so much. Part 3 is coming soon. We are going to be coming to you live from San Diego. I can't believe this shit. 1981 distribution. The thefts of Kanye West. It is coming soon. Yeah, see you guys soon.
All right, guys. I know that one of the last posts that you guys saw from me was me acknowledging some of the concerns that you guys have done a great job of addressing over social media, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys that has either sent it to me in a DM, a text, called me about this, and let me know some of the concerns that are regarding Urban Necessities. So in this video that I'm posting, I want to kind of explain and advise what I think needs to happen, and then the action that I will be taking to try to help, right? So it starts February of 2022. As you guys may or may not know, my wife is diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, which at the time is very concerning to us. It still is, and something that we're currently still battling with. Joni she's my right hand. She, as you may or may not know, has been everything that I haven't been able to be for the brand in its first, 8-9 years of the brand that we were a part of the brand. May 2022, I go to a sneaker con and I meet a group of people that represent a company called Shoe Surgeon. I meet Dominic, aka the shoe surgeon. And shortly after that, days later, I meet Dallas and Bimbo, who is his business partner and operator in Surgeon Worldwide. Over the next month, we start negotiating and talking through what it looks like to, help me run Urban Necessities because of my concerns of it being a little bit bigger than I can take on by myself, given the tools that we had, and my focus being on Joni and her health issues. We worked for months together without a deal in place, just operating on essentially what is a spit handshake. In November 2022, I sign a deal, which then takes me about 8 months later to recognize that I have absolutely no operational say in this business, and I am converted from an owner, operator, to just owner, founder, employee. And the one thing that I also accepted in this contract, which falls on me, is the liability of this business, with some of it being on me personally. When we did this deal, there was an exchange of some money that I gave all to Joni, and that money was used to pay some of our taxes, and we bought a couple of properties to take care of our friends and family. What didn't happen that should have happened at that particular moment was Joni should have been removed as a managing member, and she was not. May of 23, Joni allows Urban Necessities and Surgeon Worldwide to borrow $300,000 for a buy that was used towards product that needed to go for the store, as well as some of our licensing deals that we were doing abroad. I was very adamant that I thought it was not a good idea, and I did not want to see that money spent in that way. And Joni's reply was, "I'm just trying to help." We agreed on some of this money being repaid in a timely manner. We are currently still not repaid for that debt. And as I continue to go, you'll see why I probably don't think we're going to see a dime of it. In September of 23, my issues and concerns for changing consignment agreements without being truly transparent to consigners, changing the prices to price points that I was not comfortable with, and some of the operational started creating a lot of issues for me. We used to be on, and I was a part of, operational calls for the business, and at some point, I'm advised to not speak on the calls because I'm, basically making noise and not really aligned with what the business is, while the false narrative is painted that I'm not trying to be a part of the brand, help the brand, or be anything positive for the brand. My issues continue to keep going from here. In November of 23, my issues are so bothersome to me, and I feel so helpless that I ask to be bought out. December of 23, I received text messages from Dominic that advised, hey, I understand. And in this also, I had already talked to legal consult, and we had found some breaches that Dom took ownership of. And in December 22nd of 2023, I am offered my first buyout. A buyout that we went back and forth on a little bit, but a buyout that at some point I signed the paperwork and they never did. After a few more months, my number of what I'm being offered to walk away is lower. And then after a few more months, it's lower. And after a few more months, it's lower. And by all this is going on, May 2nd of 2024, I am terminated as an employee of Urban Necessities. Now, by this point, I've now talked to 2 different lawyer firms. I've spent more money than I want to admit in lawyer fees. I have no visibility on the brand. My emails are deleted. I don't have access to who they're paying, where they're taking loans out, what they're doing with shoes, what they're pricing stuff at. And I keep trying to figure it out. October 8th, 2024, I signed paperwork to walk away for $0 in exchange for my freedom so I could be able to provide for my family with no restrictions. I hear nothing. No one signs anything. I'm trying to raise money through, liquidating some of the things that I own, because it has now been years that I'm not working and only living off of money that I'm generating through either 2J's Closet or brand partnerships or appearance fees along the way. I hear nothing. I ask periodically, and I don't hear anything till the first week of June this year, where I'm being asked and advised that they're contemplating filing a bankruptcy. I then start re-engaging again now with a fourth different lawyer who was more helpful than any of the previous past and giving me a clear understanding and something that I am telling you that I am not running from. And that is, I am responsible for all liabilities, even though I have not been part of this brand for the last 3 years. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that they've wiped out my consignment accounts and took more money from me than I want to admit. It's frustrating that because I haven't had any transparency or visibility on the brand, and these guys have completely decided, for a lack of a better term, for whatever the reason is, right? Whether that was operational inabilities, looking over stuff. The reality of it is that people were knocking on the door to collect their money, and no one in my household or in my family or on my side of it was being advised of the debts. And one of those debts is a liability that had a personal liability assigned to me, which was a sales tax debt. That sales tax debt not only seized all of the money in my personal bank account, it did for Joni as well, even though both of us have not been with the brand for years. I'm not deflecting it. I'm not ignoring it. And I'm not going to run away from that responsibility. I have been talking to lawyers. I have been talking to friends. I have been talking to families. And that's why I have already listed the home that I live in for sale, as well as some of my other assets for sale, to take the steps, not only one, to pay that tax debt, but to make every single consignor whole throughout this process. That might take me a day. It might take me weeks. It might take me months. And I cannot allow any of my consignors to feel the burden or just lose, even though every lawyer, every friend has told me that the financial responsibility falls on my brand, and that at the end of the day, my brand could technically just bankrupt and walk away and leave all these people just out in the dark with no responsibility for it. It is not how I built my brand. It is not how I conduct business, and it is not something that I want to run away from. I am comfortable that if the numbers that they've represented to me are shown to me, that if what is on that P&L is true, if I am able to sell my properties in a timely manner, not only will I be able to repay the taxes immediately, I will also be able to pay the consignors in full right away. For me to do this, what I need and what I have asked and what I am currently negotiating is to take back 100% ownership of Urban Necessities and some of its debts. I will not take ownership for debts that have been accumulated, for accounts that they've created, for loans that they have taken in the name of the brand, and some of the brands that they claim to own, and some of the accounts that they claim to owe, some of the, layers that they've added are businesses that they actually have equity in, manage, or own. And I get it. It was my fault the last 3 years. And I signed the dumbest, I probably signed one of the worst deals in history. But it's only a bad deal because the people on the other side never felt doing it the right way. From even now, I have no guarantee that even though as I'm sitting here telling you the circumstances and situations that I have going on, which currently have me fighting for my life and realistically not even knowing where I'm going to live, I have to do the right thing. I'm going to do the right thing. And I'm hopeful that if I could get in there and I could try to correct it, that I might be able to salvage something. But a man of my word I am, and a man, and these are words I guarantee. Even if I don't see how I'm going to do it, I am going to do this. If my brand can't make it, I am comfortable that if those numbers are true, that I will be able to pull enough equity from the assets that I am liquidating to be able to run it operationally in the time that I need to be able to give everybody the remaining stuff that is in that store. I'm not running away. I'm not going to take your stuff, and I'm going to pay these bills. It's been an extremely difficult 3 years as my wife has been fighting for her life. Stage 4 colon cancer, watching her see every dollar that we had just gone because people felt like not communicating or doing the right thing, not only for us, but for the brand. I'm extremely sorry for the trust that you guys put in me and in my brand, and I'm sorry that I have let you down, and I hope that you give me the time and the opportunity to make this right. For 3 years, I've been going to the police. For 3 years, I've been trying to get the attention of the feds. For 3 years, I've gone to the Better Business Bureau. For 3 years, I've gone to lawyers. Very frustrating. I understand that the community may or may not support the next moves that need to happen on my behalf, and I have to live with that, and I hope that at the end of the day, people understand what my intentions were. And it was never to mislead you, and for that, I'm sincerely sorry. And I appreciate the time that you've given me to address the concerns, and now you have an understanding of what my action plan is, and now it's for Surgeon to finally do what they need to do, which is right. 100% give me back ownership, remove some of the debts that they incurred, because there's just no physical way that I'm going to take on some of these debts that are just made up numbers. And maybe you used it in operational stuff, but it was stuff that the brand never needed. I understand that even when I ran it, some things slipped through the cracks, but each and every one of you know that have paid attention to me as a person, that I've always stood up, doing the right thing, even when it was the wrong thing for the brand. This is no different. Appreciate your time.